I know, that is something else, I can't believe you got that on the cover of the magazine. Oops, oops. Okay. It's okay. Yeah. Recipes. They have some of the neatest recipes in Knoxville. This is Robert Redford. Oh, it is? It's really not to get, well, but it's really.
So
Sure.
this will be on Chambers.
They all know some key things. I guess.
Hi.
Six or the regular meeting?
The work session is at 6. So the regular meeting starts at 7, and that's when the update will, well, actually, it's, Michelle, the update is happening just after the work session? Are you running the work session for the full hour?
So that's
Yeah,
when,
we'll start, the update will be at 7.
Well, yeah.
that's
Gotcha.
what we,
I thought maybe you were here for that, I'm sorry. So 7 o'clock, you could come back for that update.
So that's different. Yeah, I didn't understand. I guess it's not.
I have you right there.
Awesome. Really glad it's still an offering, big boost.
Is it? Should I just go home and sleep, huh?
I'm so sleepy right now.
Yeah, what's the time difference?
8 hours.
Yeah, that just switches your whole day on its head.
And I don't think there's any way to put in the little fires that I would be able to read. There's no CM, there's no way. Because Floyd is on call, 24/7 for structure fire, for anything in Cascade Village, for the fire department. So if he leaves, I got nobody at my business. That's a nice thing.
It's the 19th, it's the 21st.
Yeah, so it's a week away, basically.
Which, next week, yeah.
So,
It's Tuesday through Friday.
yeah. So unless that storm really brings something else the rest of this week, and they got a stand down, but right now it's 24/7 for the fire department.
Well, maybe someone,
Yeah,
able to take go into your place. Right. I mean, maybe someone could go in. Because
did the
it
same
costs,
thing. I'm like, where am I supposed to
quite
be?
expensive. Isn't this kind of an I just- emergency though, I mean, we.
Oh, no, I know.
Oh.
When you can do a refund based on the emergency in this area.
Oh, maybe you reached out to Stan.
Oh,
Maybe, because he knows about it, because we've got him. Yeah.
Well, you two are sharing one, so it's what it is. I mean, we'll figure it out tomorrow, and it'll be, I mean,
Yeah.
Well, I don't wanna pull the plug if it does rain really good, and they
Okay.
get, they get a pulled off that 24 hours.
yeah.
So. Well, you guys will have to remember, and, if we have to go outside, we'll try, yeah.
Because now Michelle, you're going, right? And you're driving
right away. Also, I mean, it just depends on what the store really brings. I mean, all we could,
Todd?
this is so
The
derogatory, but all we can do is
elevator's not
pray for
working
really bad
apparently,
hurricane.
so I thought before I forget, just to let you know, it's not working.
The worse that hurricane is, the better our weather gets, yeah.
I know, just like weight tested and,
Yeah, well, it's supposed to hit Los Cabos.
I think you have to have the
I
white
think
house.
well, the mayor uses it all the time and it
And
won't
then
work at
that
all
should
for
put
her.
that
She walked up the
low
stairs.
pressure ridge,
And
all
she's
that
used to
oil
it. Or you
not
can,
directly right in
you
our
could, I mean, I didn't mean to throw it on you now, I just, okay.
I'm gonna bring my phone in case I need to call.
If you get stuck.
Oh, in case he gets locked in there.
Stuck in the elevator.
And running downtown and
Don't get her a car.
if she has an accident, I mean, it's just she, I don't know.
No, she doesn't need her own car.
Well, in her own name.
No,
Not in ours.
then you're endangering everyone,
Yes,
please.
it could be true, but she sure was. Maybe a little golf cart,
That'd be better.
something.
Yeah.
She's
Something that
really-
only goes about 10 miles an hour.
She gets pretty upset because she wants to get out of the house.
Hmm.
She's had people, she'll stop people randomly on the street and help, then help her back up.
I've seen you driving around a couple times recently.
And everybody goes, yeah, saw your mom in the grocery store, saw her over here.
You know, it's really dangerous down there though, down at the grocery store.
Just anywhere in town right now is
Well, they're really
dangerous.
picking up speed going down there though.
Mm,
And
I agree.
And she's very sharp, like my mom is sharp, and she's moving around really well,
But your
But she can't
reflexes,
hear.
yeah.
Eyesight, she can't hear, her eyesight's just.
Yeah. I was yelling at her the other day when she was talking to me.
Hi,
It's good to see you. She started laughing. She goes, I really can't hear you. And I said, I know.
I remember taking the car keys away from Carson's grandmother, and she was really sad, but it was just a hazard.
Yeah.
She was not happy about it.
Well, we wrecked her car, so now she doesn't have. I was responsible for that accident. Yeah, pretty much, because we were taking it and Ash was driving, but we wrecked it. I mean, we weren't at fault, right, we were not at fault. We did, insurance took care of it, but. So, I thought maybe we should buy a car that both Emmy and my mom would drive. A little car, maybe, I don't know. That could move over to Emmy.
Mom could teach them to drive.
Yeah, wow, those two could have a lot of fun together. Wow. Yeah, did she do the course online? Her permit?
Apparently, it's pretty involved. I purchased the course online for her to do.
It's like
And whether
30
she's-
hours or something,
Yeah, I
right?
think she's completed it yet.
They say you can, some kids quickly do it in about 9 hours, and then you just have to keep the computer running, so it's logging
Yeah.
hours.
See, I need
But
to
the
know the
kids
tricks.
are all, but they've accomplished that section, that's what I understand.
Mm.
For, some of the kids who are really bright, and they go through it pretty quickly, that they can just,
Well, she
Keep
told
the
me that
computer
there's a
running.
time limit on it,
I
on
know.
how long each of the modules are, and she didn't have enough time to finish them.
oh, interesting.
I was supposed to be doing some research from some other
So they
parents.
just don't put you in a car and teach you?
My kids just learned, but they've also, yeah, we've had some issues, but they just started driving.
I take a driver's ed course in Colorado,
Oh,
and, yeah, before you get your permit, and then, now, like, my daughter will be 16 in July, and she's about a year behind, because you have to have your permit for a year before you can get your license.
So
Yeah.
you have to take it out of school, separate from
Yeah.
school? Oh, geez.
And it's
Yeah, in
only
Arizona.
No,
300, I think.
No John Jacobs.
Yeah.
So maybe John could teach a class again, if there's enough students in town.
I think that would be super helpful to have something to
That's
focus
who
on,
taught me.
because like,
Two times
my daughter's really academic, but really busy and stuff.
Yeah, maybe through that grant, they can, there he is.
Right, I mean, I just.
Is he stuck in there?
We tried to do this before where there
Is he
was
stuck?
many students in
No, I heard
America
that.
from
Oh,
Georgia,
okay.
the bus driver said, and he would give a large class, a whole class, all the kids.
Yeah,
He just didn't want to
there was a,
have it.
okay. It's, one of the sensors was hit, Todd reset it. Todd reset the elevator, it's working.
It just has a sensor when the door closes that gets stuck sometimes, you just gotta make sure it's like all the way.
Well, it just might be a thought.
Okay, do you want to get started since everybody's here? It's 6:11. So take it away, Michelle.
All right, so we're gonna talk about the Mullis Fund. You know, quiet, so if you can hear me, say so. So this is just sort of like our agenda that we're gonna run through the work session on. We'll look at our revenues and expenses and fund balances, they're all together in one graph. We'll look at some of the work that we've done on this year already. And what I'm estimating our operating expenses, so that will be the actual expenses of the budget, so we can go over that. I put in some numbers there and we can talk about those. And then, talk a little bit about the master plan, which was in your packet. We didn't print copies of those because it's a massive document. And then, a capital improvement savings plan, for Lowe's so that we can start the implementation of this master plan.
Michelle, can I ask a quick question? You may have said that while I was walking around, but on this sheet here, are these the budgeted amounts for 2018? They've got to be, right? Because I went through the budget. These are different, but these are the same.
Yeah, budgeted amounts. Yeah, these
Okay.
were all budgets.
Okay, so, all right, instead of actuals?
Yes.
So this is different than the budget.
Oh, okay. That's it. We've got some different graphs here.
Okay, so we're gonna start with the revenues, and expenses. From 2013 to 2017, we've seen, a definite steady increase in, we've consistently had revenues, over our expenses, in the last 5 years, but we have seen a consistent, growth in our fund balance. have a new campground host who's doing a lot of work with Todd M can speak to any of that. Some of this stuff was essential stuff, the showers, repairing the showers, those weren't working, getting those fire rings in.
What does it say under restroom something?
Waste baskets?
No, and go down, what's that say?
Oh, rescue fly traps.
And then the next one? Oh, okay.
Just to speak to this stuff, it was all I would consider to be pretty minimal, or it was the bare minimum of what we could do up there to give guests a pleasant experience, fly traps and stuff like that. Fire rings, we had a couple stolen last year, and we simply replaced those. When we get some more time, we're gonna cement those all in. We bought a commercial fish cleaning station, it's being returned, because we were unhappy with the quality of it. Some of the welds on it were not, worth what we paid for it. So that's gonna be going back and, depending on kind of where things go in the next week or two, we'll reevaluate getting another fish cleaning station, but for now, we're just gonna hold off to halt expenses.
Is there a fee associated with people using that fish cleaning station, or is it just kind of a complimentary thing?
Is there a fee?
Yeah.
Is there a fee associated with people?
No, it's
using
included, but the one we have currently is just an old kitchen sink, and it gets used quite frequently, so we saw it as a valid, expenditure, just because of the amount of fishing that goes on up there.
Mm-hmm.
And at the bottom, that's just the most current numbers that we have right now. In the last 10 days, we've lost 80% of our reservations in June and as far as July 9th, which is about a 70% of our loss thus far.
Can you go over the cancellation policy real quick for us? Should we talk about it in the past?
Is there a cancellation fee?
There is a cancellation fee. I don't know the cancellation policy off the top of my head. It's managed by our campground host through our website. I know there is a fee associated with it if it's within a certain time frame, and I don't know what that is.
Because I think canceling in July is a little premature. I mean, we have a hotel,
Mm-hmm.
and, I mean, they can, there will be cancellation policy, of course, they can do that, but
I can't imagine charging them now. I mean, they're not able to get here unless they go the long
Panic
way.
sets in, and it is what it is.
Pardon?
People panic.
Oh, I know they do.
They freak out, oh my God, there's
Well,
no way.
like Tiffany said though, for canceling for July is a little bit premature. I mean, we could have a big rainstorm, hopefully.
I believe I'd have to double check, but I believe the cancellation policy is you get 50% of your money back.
Mm-hmm.
Every one of these cancellations has been due to the smoke.
Right.
Or medical conditions,
Okay.
including the ones in July. So I think George Foster has been judging it on a case-to-case basis. If it's a medical reason, 100% back. If it's a preemptive cancellation, I believe he's been doing 50%.
Mm-hmm. Well, what about the smoke? Did you say people have been canceling because of the smoke?
That's what the majority of them have.
Okay, and what's he doing about that?
If it's a smoke cancellation for a medical reason or because they're
Okay.
worried about it, it's been a full refund.
All right, good, thanks.
Is the website molluslake.com? It's not appropriate. So,
Did you pull it up?
yeah, cancellations made within 4 days of your arrival and cover charge equal to 50% of your total reservation fee plus tax. No refunds will be given for cancellations made within 3 days of your arrival or early departure.
posting pictures on the site, because, today is quite beautiful,
Mhm.
right? And not smoky, just kind of daily pictures, but I don't know if that's,
I think it's
is
a
that
good idea.
outside?
That's what we do with the chamber. Push it, push it, push it. Go outside, take live videos, take quick shots, get them up there, so that way people are like, oh, hey, it doesn't look that bad, we're panicking for no reason. So,
I don't know.
Well, CNN had Durango burning down.
exactly, we're not trying to, let's remember that.
We have discussed getting a webcam for up there, which I think might be.
Oh, that would be good.
That'd be
More
fun.
appropriate, because we don't want to post photos and then have them
Sure.
show up and it be smoky. That way we could do it in real time
You're
on the website.
Nice.
And that would be a minimal expenditure, I think they're about $100, so.
That might be something.
I feel like the cancellation policy is a little soft, 3 to 4 days. Does anybody else on board have any thoughts on that?
You think a week?
What is yours, Tiff, for the,
A week.
it's a week?
It's a week. I mean, I started out in 2 days, I went to 4 days, then I went to a week, because it's tough to rebook,
Yeah,
right?
how easy is it to refill those spots?
It's tough, so I just, over 20 years it took me to get to a week.
Do they ever make a
That's-
cancellation, not a cancellation, but a list of people who call and there isn't anything available, but they want to be put on a list just in the event that there's an opening?
I don't know that we've tracked them before, but that does bring a good point, because actually I'm not sure if we know how hard it is to fill cancellations, if
Mhm.
we are getting those with walk-ins. I don't think we have an accurate record of that.
Would be interesting to know. Whether or not our cancellation policy is appropriate.
And we're doing a case law stuff similar for health reasons, of course.
I think right now George has been using his discretion.
Yeah, that's what we're doing.
I have one question about the credit card fees and the processing of credit cards up there. It seemed like it was a little bit over budget, and I was just curious who the processor is and maybe if, like, what the numbers on the credit card processing is, and if we can do a little bit better there.
Yeah, let's move to the next slide, because that's the proposed budget for 2019 in the far right corner. And yeah, I noticed that too. And part of that is, our percentage of our fees is based on our percentage of transactions. And so as we have increased our reservations and our sales up there, our credit card fees have also increased. So yeah, you're right.
Who is the merchant?
It is merchant services, it's through Chase Payment Services. And that runs through the web reserve system, and then gets auto done.
And that's right, through those web reserve or software, the booking software, you're only given maybe 2 or 3 credit card options.
Yeah, oh yeah.
You're not given the full gamut
Mhm.
of different companies, or at least that's been my experience, is that it's who kind of what works with them.
Oh yeah, that's our only option.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. Generally, maybe there's 2 and not 3 of them.
Unless we switch our whole reservation system.
So why is there a $10,000 increase? I'm a little confused on management services. Management services?
Management services, that's for the campground contract.
Yeah.
So
But it was
originally,
25,
it was gonna be $25,000 for 2018, and then the contract once negotiated, which was after this budget was passed, was for $30,000. And if you include the bonuses that they're able to get, that kind of gives them the buffer around $35,000. So that would be more accurate, assuming we go with the same type of contract in 2019. That's about as close as I can estimate it might be.
I mean, the 2017 actual was just over 35.
Yeah.
Doing all math in there.
It was bonuses then, wasn't it?
Bonuses,
Yeah.
right.
Oh, gotcha, sorry.
What was the bonus in 2017?
Well, it's in different tiers, and it's dependent upon what percentage of capacity that they
Mhm.
reach. And I believe they got around the $12,000 bonus, and that was 80 to 100% or 120%. I think it was 80 to 100% capacity in that tier range is what they got for that. And then I'm thinking they also got an initial bonus in the beginning, which the new contractor did as well, and that was about $1,500 to start
Mhm.
managing reservations on January 1st.
Yeah.
But the so we're just doing the advertising then, because the $500 advertising budget ain't nothing.
They are not doing the advertising. I mean, we have our website,
So
and
then-
they're in charge of their own store once people are there, but they're not doing the active advertising.
So then why would you get a bonus if you're not?
That's the way the contract was set up the last 3 years.
So in reexamine that.
Yeah, and this also brings up a good point on, you know, when you're budgeting for something, I guess the importance of reviewing these contracts in a timely manner so that they're more accurately reflecting, or vice versa, the budget's more accurately reflecting what we are going to be paying out to a contract in the future. So, yeah, definitely something to review.
Okay, so is there a way I can get a copy of that, previous, because I wasn't honestly on the board then, I'd like a copy of that, please. The current.
And contracts that we'll be considering now would be, say, winter contracts that we maybe have, that we'll be having, say, with snowmobile. I mean, I could see waiting until the season is finished for this, and we have a follow-up on how Moss did, right? We have feedback from the managers, right? the
Right,
management.
and this being a sort of a difficult year, this is gonna be a hard one to try to predict, you know, for the next year.
I agree,
Um,
I agree.
yeah,
But just these contracts, when,
yeah, I think we have compiled, semi-compiled,
a date.
more than once, a timeline of contracts that need to be reviewed by the administrator, and then renegotiated. Yeah, definitely, I would say that the minor contracts should be looked at as early as possible. Lisa, you can probably speak to that with Venture, the importance of having those sort of, agreements in place before you start your marketing campaigns, things like that, so yeah, it's basically. And for the administrative fee, yeah, so I did raise the credit card fees based on the 2017 actuals. It's really an average, of what it's been over the past several years. I estimated the administrative fee as an average as well of what it's been. So those numbers, well, the credit card merchant fees is probably good right where it's at, but, the admin fee may change.
Did you say about what the percentage was though on credit cards to charge? I mean, that's a lot of money they get.
Oh, that's nothing.
Huh?
That's over an entire summer, that's not.
It's not bad, okay, well, I don't even know what the percentage is on it.
Yeah, I'll look that up. It's,
It depends, I've got mine, but it depends on the credit card. Business corporate cards charge you about 2.5, but I've got the regular rate on just most regular cards at 1.62, but that depends on volume. So, but yeah, that's not a hefty credit card fee for the entire time, it's actually really cheap.
I'd like to know if we could, what numbers those pull from? Is it in the revenue section, they talk about some different,
what page you on?
I think it's just page 3. Just like the campground reservations online, year-to-date actual right now is $126,000, so just curious what numbers those come from, like, fees in there, the user fees, campground user fees, like what the percentage of like cash versus credit card, if it's all credit card.
Anything that's done online is all credit card. I don't believe we've received any cash transactions yet this year. The way that works in the past couple of years, when we had the different hosts up there, was they would come in once a week or so. They would come in occasionally with the cash and the transactions, and we started to input those all in one setting. But currently, anything that you're saying is going to be, unless you've received cash?
Yeah, George had asked me about that early on, and I think he was more comfortable doing it like monthly or however it's recorded. It doesn't matter if it comes to me weekly or monthly, really. We didn't have a policy in place. So the last hosts liked it that way. I have not received any to date, but I anticipate getting some cash. I don't know what he has up there. I don't think there's a safe. I'm not sure how he's securing all of, because he has his own store as well, so I'm not sure how he's securing his funds.
And I think they rent outboards and kayaks and things, and that's the host's, revenue, correct?
Right, so he has the ability to run the store, run the rentals, keep the shower tokens, all of those are additional revenues for the campground host. And, so based on, operating expenses over the years, to come up with, I think it was budgeted, again, once again, a little bit low. And part of that is as we increase our amenities up there, so now we've got HughesNet, and we've got the power and trash, and we've got web reserve, the website host. So there's a lot of different miscellaneous things fall under operating expenses, and we also have some necessary expenses that'll fall under there that were maybe upgrades or some of that. We'll see, yeah, exactly, that kind of stuff, right, cleaners.
Septic.
Yeah, if we have to replace signs, we don't have that stuff really broken out into line items, it just becomes overall, I mean, we can print it, I can print a detailed ledger that says exactly where each, payment went to. But it's all sits under operating expenses, so, yeah, we're replacing signage, or we're doing some, bringing in gravel, or, all of that's gonna fall under that. So I think in 2019, we tried to be a little more accurate, we took an average. But really, it's up to you guys if you want to see it go up or down, or stay right there. And I did raise the advertising a little bit. I was hoping, as we come down here, actually to the next slide, we'll talk about the master plan and sort of what the process might look like with that, moving forward. So I think it would be prudent for us to have a little more money in advertising, which might just, broadly cover community engagement.
I still think 500 is on the low side.
It is low, yeah.
Because you could run, oh my God, just even Facebook ads. You could go $35 Facebook ads,
And we are doing
push your
some
audience.
stuff, we do some advertising and camping, is it Camping World or,
I don't know if that's happened recently. Destination Silverton and Durango Magazine are some of the print ads that we've placed since I've come on board. But yeah, I haven't come across Camping World yet.
And those expenses have probably fallen under operating expenses, so, the way I envision this line, advertising, if you're putting anything in there, it's really gonna be for the promotion of, and the growth of Mold's in our plan.
Yeah, it should be directed to.
And then the last two line items are from an old budget, and I haven't used those in the past few years, but like, unless, but they are there, those are things that can just be hidden in the budget, and if in subsequent years we need to use them, we can. Machine and equipment, of course, is the big one that we
So
potentially
is
may
that
use to
where
purchase.
the purchase of the sink would have gone under? Or did you stick that into operating expenses?
I am not sure where that one is yet, because I'm not even sure we made the payment on that one yet.
I'd have to look at that. I believe I did pay, or maybe you paid by credit card.
I paid by credit card.
Yeah, so-
And it was put in the budget under operating supplies.
Okay.
But like I said, that's. on
Gonna
its
be
way back.
refunded,
Yeah,
but
it's
that
gonna
would be-
refunded.
Those credit cards are allocated to those GLs later. I don't handle those the same way, or at all, actually.
So, moving on to the next piece of this is the Mullis Lake Master Plan. And so I think ultimately, we identified and did some necessary repairs and maintenance this year at Mullis. Something that hadn't really been done in great depth prior to this year. But ultimately, we want to look at the master plan and create a larger prioritized plan that we can save and, develop grant matches or loans or whatever it may be to implement the larger plan. So now that we've kind of completed a lot of this deferred maintenance this year, the goal moving forward is going to be to try to save, create capital improvement savings that we can use to leverage more money to work on the master plan. So I just threw out some ideas of what that might look like, similar to what we're working on over at Kendall Mountain Recreation Area, with a series of community engagement meetings, and we utilize technical assistance through a establishing a capital improvement savings. Right now, we have, in the MOLIS fund, just like in each of the funds, we established a future capital outlay line item, so we are,
Moving money.
we are, it's sitting in the fund, but it is separated out, so that it, we're starting to accumulate a little bit of savings, but there's no real written policy on that. And
What was the percentage that was getting moved?
well, there hasn't been, so that's, so that, there was a percentage, there was a chunk that was moved in the first year, I think it was for Molis, I believe it was $10,000, I have a financial statement that says, yeah, 10,000. And that's all that's sitting there right now, so I did, I think, in this, graph here, we're looking at what the fund balances are. Here are the fund balances over a 5-year trend. This is the percentage that they've increased over the prior year. And this is our net revenues right here. So I propose, just throwing out an idea that so that we have some sort of policy and a percentage that we're working off of, that each year, post-audit, we reserve 80% of our net revenues for capital improvements, and we still leave 20% of those net revenues in, as accumulating the fund balance. And those are just numbers I threw out there, so if you guys would like to change those, discuss them.
Because some of the improvements that we've made to us just come out of expenses, correct? Before we have, right? Some
Yes.
improvements,
Some improvements, and there are, we could potentially anticipate, well, on an annual basis, we're gonna have a lot of different, when we're looking at the water security plan, we have legal, fees that we really need to pursue, that situation up there, our water rights at Molis, and we've got work on the dam and the,
could we have a schedule
years.
or develop a schedule as to, needed deferred maintenance and needed improvements and, you know, to say a 10-year, 15-year.
I think that's part of the goal of the overall facility, inventory,
Okay.
is understanding, and that's a big undertaking. Just so everyone is aware that, and super appreciative that Todd's gonna take that one on. But yeah,
Because
that-
then each board, regardless if we're here, 2 years, 4 years down the road, they have something to work with that where we've accomplished certain, deferred maintenance and how that schedule looks into the future.
right, I think that's important, and then, in addition, that's also why, reviewing this, master plan is important, prioritizing. So where does that deferred maintenance overlap with what are the priorities of developing a master plan, and putting all of that out in a timeline? I think it's essential for us to be able to save properly and understand what we're working towards, what type of grants we might be looking for. What's most important, is it our water security, or is it that, we develop more campgrounds and a group site, or whatever it may be. Yeah, that's an important step. We're kind of at a point where we need that in order to move forward.
And thank you, I believe Todd's working on that project.
For all facilities.
For all facilities, thank you.
And if I may, just to use a term that we use often, sometimes it feels like some of the projects have been piecemeal because we don't have that bigger picture. And so we're always kind of, we've been playing catch up with some of these instead of looking at the big plan. And so you're right, Tiffany, and what Michelle, yeah, knowing what that looks like going forward is going to be really important and helpful to not only the board, but staff.
So if anybody has any questions or concerns or suggestions, I'm gonna go take it back to the slide that shows, what I'm estimating to budget for 2019, so you can take a look at that. And those are all, can be subject to change if you'd like to see change in that. Our preliminary budget doesn't get passed till October 15th. And where I wanna move on to other funds and as, per the schedule, for these work sessions, we can always revisit anything, prior to October, if anybody desires to do so. It really is, and that's, again, I'm stressing the importance of having that overall master plan and that larger vision, and so that we're not kind of being nickel and dime for these little maintenance issues when, we need to know what we're working towards, what that vision looks like, and we can plan better for it.
Do you see anything pressing, Todd, that could be bumped up just because you're out there and you're seeing what's going on?
I'm not seeing anything that's urgent. I think having a master plan, a couple of things we could work in. I know an event venue has been something that I think could.
Okay, I'd like to see, anything that you wanna add in, if you wanna kick it to us.
I'm pretty happy with the current status of Moelis. It really is in good shape,
Okay.
especially when you compare it to some of our other facilities. It's non-urgent.
And
but-
Todd, did you want to talk about some of the, I know that you guys have put in a lot of work just for aesthetics up there, and what it looks like. Give a quick overview.
A lot of it is just site maintenance. There's a lot of grading that goes on up there, a lot of site preparation. That's where a lot of effort goes into. Working the culvert, man hours doing that, making sure the water is actually getting to Moelis and there's no obstruction. Gravel. There is a septic system up there that needs attention, water, sewer, showers. So there is quite a bit of infrastructure out there.
How long, well, you probably don't know, but how long has that current septic system been in place?
I'm not sure the answer to that.
Because that can always be.
They just have it,
an issue.
maintained and inspected, and it seems to be in good working order. But as far as where money is allocated, I think it's appropriate, so no changes.
That's everything for Lois, so, I will, and I'll send this to everyone, a copy of the campground management contract, the current contract. So you can review that, and, I will look up exactly what the fees are for the, merchant services credit card.
Can you tell me if the contract this year was the same as last year and the same as the past couple of years? Or how much?
No, the contract has changed,
And I'd like to see what we want to.
yeah. And in fact, the prior, hosts up there, their contract changed in between years for them while they were there. So I think it changed every year, at least in the past 3 years. So I can give you a span of contracts to kind of look at, and, yeah, I would be.
Just like to remind the board that in the past we've had a hard time getting proposals for to fill that position. So we should either explore other opportunities to try to appeal to a wider variety of potential applicants.
Well, and then creating, I see an issue, personally, just with the way that you're giving a bonus, but they're not doing the marketing, the town's still paying for it, so why not take away a bonus and then just increase the actual wages, and then put a little bit, more into your revenue, into your advertising budget?
I'm not saying that that's wrong, but
Yeah.
mentioned to me by both Doug Wall and George that, that position could benefit maybe from a multi-year contract instead of being evaluated each year.
Mhm.
Okay.
Kind of because you kind of move in and, yeah, April or May, and you're done in September.
Well, and they make investments, I'm sure,
Right.
paddle boards, different things, their store inventory,
Exactly.
things I can understand.
You know, I like the idea of it, I mean, if we're gonna give, either raise the rates or the, bonus. A bonus is an incentive,
Yeah.
yeah, and I think.
But if they're not doing the advertising, what's the incentive?
Yeah,
Yeah, because if they were doing the advertising, I could see that.
Right.
Because then you're pushing it constantly, because you're like, hey, I'm at 100% all the time. But if you're not doing the advertising and you're just standing there going, hey, I just got another reservation, you know what I mean? So why
Yeah.
not raise the wages to keep them and do a I like that multi-year contract. That's really, good insight. So I'll send it to everybody via email, and if you want hard copies, just request it. Thank you.
thanks, Michelle.
That one's a lot of fun.
To get us talked over, we're gonna make this.
And
Entire budget.
yes. Entire budget.
Okay, perfect. Okay.
Well,
I just thought, oh my gosh, we have a lot of
Big.
these guys. Okay.
yeah, and maybe we can,
Double up.
we can talk about that. You wanna talk about it? Is it-
No, it's very,
It's a very big
yeah,
step.
and it's on. Just so we get.
Oh, are we on track for getting to October?
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yes. Yeah, okay. Answer.
Thank you. Just like, I'm so.
Yeah.
Hello?
Hey, I'm trying to see where I can sit.
Anywhere in that row or behind, you know, you're good to go.
Keep inching over this way.
Did you get one?
Stoney, the three, I have three that are going out for repair. I'm sorry, when they were returned to me, they weren't functioning. Well, I'd like to get everybody, I mean, I have them, they just have to get fixed. I'll let you know as soon as they're ready. Are we good? You want me to do that? Okay.
Next, I'll be voluntold on a whole bunch of other things, won't I? Yeah.
Okay. You look busy. Just look busy.
No, I didn't have a chance to reach out to them today.
So we have a minute. I've noticed on the addresses in the emails
Yes.
or in the packets,
Okay.
you have me under my personal address. I noticed it's incorrect.
Oh, really? For your personal email address? Oh, do you want to jot it down one more time?
Sure.
I think we've gone through this and for some reason.
Well, I've been getting this through the.
Lord one.
Yeah, now I figured out it was the board.
Okay. Yeah, go
Email,
ahead and
so
write
it's
it
not
down.
really an issue, but I don't want
We
this
have
stuff
a minute.
going to somebody else.
Oh, right. Yeah,
So
okay.
just write it right here?
Yeah, just jot it right there. That's great. Yeah, sorry about that. I don't know how we,
That's okay. There's actually an L in between the J
and the W. Okay.
at Gmail.
Okay. I'll make sure Michelle and I both get it fixed in our computers. Thank you.
Retrace my notes backwards
Do you want me to go run a few more?
There we go.
I don't have an updated one. Is it saved in the desktop?
Yeah, awesome, yeah, Davis called me today, this is.
It's saved in there in case, yeah, she's definitely correct.
And, that's funny. Did it? I was so bummed we didn't do that. We ended up, we didn't have enough time, or we didn't think we had enough time. I should have done it.
Madam Mayor, do you have the option where we like move this so that everybody can see it better?
The IC was good with doing it from here, but it's up to you.
If you're good from there, we can keep it. I mean, we're just going back to that first space.
Sometime when you have nothing better to do with your life, we'll sit down and I'll give you the history on the Anvil Mountain Extension and what it means. There's actually an intergovernmental agreement that spells out a lot of this stuff, and then a lot of it was just kind of handshakes. It was all thoroughly and overly inspected by Joanne. So, but yeah, so well, I'll just. I mean, I know you had no history at all to it.
No,
and most people don't.
I just got this from Lisa today, so I was gonna come through it during the meeting.
So yeah, sometime when you're, like I say, or if you have trouble sleeping at night, sometime.
Anytime?
Yeah, just about.
Just call, right?
So no, just whenever I'll go through it with you, show you what the towns, or explain to you what the towns part of it is, and what they're obligated to, and what the counties is, and how it all works.
When you hold all the history up here, it's whatever really says.
It's whatever. I make it up as I go. Actually, if
No,
I have
I'm
to, I
just
can
teasing.
find
I'm
supporting
just
documents.
teasing.
No, they were funny.
No, I'm just saying, you seem to have it all.
It's ancient now because it was,
Yeah, several years ago.
So I mean, yeah, but yeah, no, just to give you some information and knowledge on it. Yeah, because I mean, it's something I should have thought about earlier.
I think we kind of have it figured out. It's simple, at least. One pint.
One pint, yeah.
Just a few gallons.
Yeah.
These guys are on the agenda.
Yeah, they're doing a fire. I don't have the new agenda, but it was changed, so we've got a fire update. And then we have a executive session. I think they got results from the investigation.
Okay, everybody, it's 7 o'clock, so
I'm
we'll
gonna
start
start
this meeting with the
till
roll
after.
call.
Oh, you are?
Trustee Barella?
Here.
Trustee Wigger?
Here.
Trustee Decay?
Here.
Trustee Molina?
Here.
Trustee Renowden?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Lashley?
Here.
Mayor Tukey?
Here. Okay, then our first business is the Pledge of Allegiance. So if everyone will stand.
say it for the attorney.
I don't,
Oh, for which?
town manager, town manager.
I kind of think that it goes with whatever we're gonna talk to, Mr. Robbins about in the executive session. Because we can't do anything about it until we find out what the results were. Thank you. Okay, so what we'll do first is read our town meeting protocols to start off, and then we'll do a public comment before we have all the information from these wonderful people who are coming to tell us what they've been doing for the last long days. So, to start off, these are the protocols for the board and the staff for public town meetings that we had as outcomes from our Silverton Board of Trustee retreat back in 2017. So the mayor runs the meeting. To speak, the trustee and staff raise hands and speak when recognized by the mayor. Only one speaker at a time. Open public participation throughout the meeting will no longer be allowed. Conversations between trustees and the public will no longer be allowed except at the public comment portion of the meetings. We address each other as trustee and Madam Mayor. We move contentious items to the beginning of the agenda. We post each agenda on the whiteboard in the meeting room. Public participation, the public comment at the beginning of the meeting for agenda or non-agenda items. And we also have added public comment at the end of the meetings. And these are for agenda or non-agenda items, but not criticism of staff and not for public hearings. If the public has questions, comments, concerns about town staff, public shall inform the administrator through written email. If the public has questions, comments, or concerns about town administrator, the public shall inform either the mayor or a trustee through written email. The introduction of agenda items, discussion on agenda items, then motion and second on action item, then the final discussion on the specific motion. The trustees and mayors shall adhere to and enforce the new protocol of the board for town meetings through compliance with their adopted accountability protocol and operating agreement. So we'll start off the meeting with, if anybody has any public comments, and you're limited to 3 minutes in duration. So if anybody, before we get the 416 fire update, does anyone have any public comment? Okay, then we'll go direct to the proclamations and presentations, and the first is the 416 fire updates. So if you would say your name so that we have it for the record. Okay. Yeah, you can either take it off if that's, you can take your microphone off and walk around, or however is comfortable for you.
Madam Mayor, Board of Trustees, my name is Alan Sinclair, and I'm the incident commander training with the Type 1 team that took command of the fire on Saturday night. I'm a trainee out of the state of Arizona. I'm a regional priority in our region, and up here working with this team on what could potentially be my last training center. So that's who I am. With the fire, I can speak from the map if that would.
Yeah.
So what I'd like to do is just give you a general overview and not really get into specifics unless there's some specific questions. Generally, we bring an ops chief that spends their day really engaged in the field and is more knowledgeable about the local names of areas. So I'm going to do my best to describe what we've been doing since the team's been here. So the highway corridor has been one of our main focuses with a lot of the residences and the values at risk that have been in that corridor. So we've focused a lot of time in here, and currently it's looking really good. We've got fire down to the road, and they've been spending the past couple of days mopping up, and so that's really seeking out hot spots and extinguishing them so that we don't have anything creep around and threaten any of the structures. We haven't lost any structures on this fire at this time. Thank you. So it's looking really good at this time. It gets a little bit more challenging as we get up into this area. They're looking for areas to tie in to some of the higher elevation areas where there's less fuel in some of the rockier areas. And I think it was the Gray Skills, is that correct for a name up there?
Graysill.
Graysill. Okay. So they're looking, and there's 3 ridges that come off of that, and they're looking at opportunity to take a line into there that would, be where they would take fire and tie it in there. But they don't want to bring fire into this area if they don't need to. So it becomes somewhat of a waiting game. We like to engage fire under our terms. The past couple of days were difficult days with the weather that we had over the weekend. Today's been a little bit different of a situation. This stuff didn't move throughout the weekend much. It's advanced a little bit, but it becomes kind of sparse aspen. It's not the continuous stand of pine that we see down a little bit lower. So they're looking for opportunities up here. If the fire pushes our hand, they've got a lot of work done to have an area to make a stand and to protect a lot of the values at risk in this area. Where we were focused yesterday and the day before was down in the Hermosa Creek area. We had fire that moved onto the south side of the creek and was causing a problem with a lot of the homes that we have in that area. We've got quite a few people evacuated. There's about 2,156 homes evacuated and about 5,390 people impacted with that evacuation. And we estimate that by estimating 2.5 people per household. It's just a general number that we use to get to that. And I'll give you the acreage too, which I should have done up front. 20,131 acres. And we have about 917 personnel assigned to the 416 fire. Yesterday evening and the night before, we had pretty active fire behavior down here, and it became somewhat of a firefight right on the edge of the homes. Last night we were flying aircraft until about 9 o'clock, but they did an outstanding job of protecting these homes and engaging the fire. And when we asked the firefighters to engage that fire, we also asked them to understand that they're the #1 priority. We don't want them doing anything that's unsafe, and they have to really take a calculated stance against the fire, which they did. So a little bit of the weather was on our side because it happened later on in the evening, which was a good thing for us. If it would have happened earlier in the day, we may have had a different outcome. So things were in alignment for a successful day yesterday. They've continued to do some burning, and they've got a control line in, and they're bringing fire down as we speak behind some homes in that area. So a lot of open country out here, a lot of places where it's difficult to make a stand and ask firefighters to go. They're looking at options, and there's going to be fire out there for quite a bit. That's the 416 fire. But yesterday we also were asked to take command of this over here, which is called the Borough Fire, and we've got a couple other, about a couple hundred people over there fighting that, and we've actually had the depth within the team to send an organization that mimics what we have managing this to manage that. So they've got a qualified incident commander over there. They've got logistical support. they're bringing in all the stuff that they need to take care of the firefighters that are engaged with that firefight. And this thing changed a little bit. It kind of sat for a few days, and then yesterday, activity increased, doubled in size, and some spot fires were developed through the convective lift. So what happens with spot fires is the smoke's rising, it's taking burning debris with it, and then it gets, and the wind's aloft and gets deposited ahead of the fire. So they're in a situation now where they've got fire out ahead of it, and they're looking at what they're going to do. It's in alignment to become a pretty large fire at this point. Any specific questions?
Are you finding any debris flying, from the wind being flown up north? There's pictures on Facebook of leaves landing in Silverton. Some that are burned and some that are scorched. And would that be a problem as far as starting fires other places?
Correct, and that's the type of stuff that will start the spot fires. We haven't had any indication that any of those, any debris that's being deposited far away is still hot as it's landing. So we've seen some stuff traveling some pretty good distances, but at this point we haven't seen anything depositing any burning material far ahead of it. We get a lot of our information. We have an aircraft that will fly over and give us infrared information. So that's how we know that we've got spot fires out here. And it would be highly likely that flight would pick up some of those.
On the note of that infrared aircraft, the video earlier today that was posted on Facebook indicated that aircraft was grounded for a period of time. Do you have an estimate on when that's going to show back up?
So it did come back up. It was down, so we didn't get the information this morning. And the 20,000 plus acres is updated information than what we have this morning.
So is the fire active all the way from Hermosa, all say close to where Electra Lake, or is it active on the highway?
Well,
Along the highway corridor?
we have different ways of describing fire activity, and right now it's very moderated through here, but that can change. And so once we get boots on the ground to get out there and verify exactly what the conditions are and ensure that anything hot around the structures is extinguished, we really don't like to make definitive statements about it. Down here was extreme fire behavior the past couple days and very active. Up here, it looks very docile right now, but that could change. The weather conditions can change, and you get something under the right conditions, and it could be off to the races again. Right now, things are Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and trustees. Good evening, people. I'm Matt Genoviak, I'm Columbine District Ranger here in the San Juan National Forest. I'm here to talk a little bit about the Stage 3 fire restrictions that we have at the San Juan National Forest. Stage 3 is something that we have never done before. It's very serious, and we take it very seriously as well. We know the impacts of this. We feel that at this point, we were out of options. One of the biggest criteria that we're faced with deciding to go into stage 3 or not is, are humans going onto the forest at risk? Literally, are their lives at risk because of the field conditions on the forest? If the answer is yes, basically the humans become the value at risk on the forest, not the trees, not the habitat, it's the humans on the forest. That's what we're seeing today, which is one of the biggest reasons why we said we have to go to stage 3. The other reason is the human starts. And what we're dealing with on these fires is we believe those fires were human starts. We have no indication that there was lightning in those areas for the last 7 to 10 days. We don't have it fully confirmed, but we really believe that all the evidence points to those being human starts. And when those human starts lead to these situations here, and the potential loss and damage to the communities that we have directly affected, and communities like Silverton, we don't have a lot of choices. We need to protect these forests so that next year, people can come up here and enjoy these forests. So, again, those 2 reasons are really what drove us to say we really don't have any more options at this point. I just got a text message from my fire management officer that they've dropped smoke jumpers. The fire is near Whitehead, between Whitehead and Highland Mary Lakes. That's in Muir County. And I'm not trying to be dramatic about this or anything like that, but again, we're talking about what is likely to be another human start. That is why we're going into stage 3. We have to close the forest right now. We need your help. And I hate to say this, I was up here not too long ago asking for your help. I'm asking again. And I know you guys are kind of tapped out. But we need to keep the forest closed so that we can preserve it. So that you guys have something to fall back on when things get better. When we can lift these restrictions and open that forest up, that there's something for folks to come back here to recreate on. So I'm going to ask for your help. We're going to put closure signs up. We're going to have people posted at the main portals, and I would hope that the folks in the community can respect our folks and talk to them civilly and get information and respect those closures where we can't put people. We will put signs as best we can, we'll patrol as best we can, but I would look to the community of Silverton to really help us out with that. And I guess with that, I'm just going to open it for questions for the trustees. As well as you folks.
Matt? Yes. Thank you so much for your diligence and all the hard work you guys have been doing. What, at this point, is it going to take to see Class 3 fire restriction ban lifted?
One word, rain.
How much?
We don't know yet. Basically, we're going to be monitoring the conditions, and I think we've got the 10 criteria that drove us into stage 3. We will be looking at all 10 of those, and if we back off on a significant number of those criteria, we'll probably be reopening the forest. We want it, it's kind of like 550 of the railroad being closed. We want this as open as quickly as we can do it, but it has to be safe as well. But we'll be watching it.
What is the likelihood of 550? Anybody know about how soon that's going to be open? Or if we go back to one lane?
Yeah, I can give an update on.
Well, if we can, just before,
Yep.
and just to make sure all the questions are answered. Sorry.
Okay.
Love you, Dan. Don't want to shut you.
I don't, on 550, I'm not dodging containment and all the emergency management folks, so I would defer to Jim on that. So other questions about stage 3?
Matt, would you share with the group the specifics about the road closures and specifically the roads that we're going to keep open?
So basically what we're looking at is the roads up around Upper Hermosa. That area up there, those roads will be closed. South Mineral is going to be closed. We'll be closing the River Road along over, but basically, I'll just name the roads that are going to be left open, I guess. It's going to be US Basin and the overpass. And we hashed that out today. We recognize that those are some key roads to keep open for access for your community. And there's basically dual jurisdiction on these, and we worked that out with the Bruce.
Will that include Black Bear Pass too, Matt?
No.
You are not gonna
this time.
Library's closed.
It's closed now, but I mean, if snow melts, say in a week or two, it will be considered to be closed, so.
At this time, yes. We can revisit these things, okay? It's just a matter, we need to have really good reason to put people up there and recognizing that they become the value and risk up there if we do get something started. Yes.
You said overpass and what other pass was it? Brooklyn?
Can you, pardon me?
Did you say overpass and Brooklyn's are open?
Is the US base in Brooklyn?
Yes.
US base? US base.
I didn't understand that either.
Is that what it
Yeah,
is?
it's hard to hear.
I'm sorry. Hired. Yes.
You said a new start, did I hear in the county, it's between Highland?
It's off to the south, it's between Whitehead and Highland Mary, that's where they're looking for it right now. And we have launched some smoke jumpers to go in there.
Kendall Mountain Road then, is that off limits with the new fire probably as well?
That's BLM.
Stage 2.
Stage 2 for BLM.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are you, Joe?
Okay, good evening, everyone. Jim Donovan, Emergency Manager for Seminole County. Just a few updates just on the emergency side, working with Type 1 416 team. 550 is still, right now it's an indefinite closure. There's a lot of complexities with it. The big complexity is determining re-entry for all of the residents along the 550 corridor. So we're working out that plan right now with La Plata County Sheriff, CDOT, and Colorado State Patrol, and Seminole County Sheriff. So once that re-entry plan is in place, then we'll see a better idea of when the corridor is open. So we need to just brace ourselves for having it in its current state. Part of it too is the IMT needs to keep that corridor basically closed for fire operations, and they can refer to that as well. So they've been really using that corridor as a big fire break.
The definition of indefinitely, no. I mean, yes,
No.
but it's very frightening to this community.
Absolutely, and we're trying to get, each day we're getting a little closer where we can get a better timeline on it. But there's just, the big thing to think about is all of the evacuations that happened. That's going to be a complex operation, getting everybody back in. So that'll be the decision point. Once re-entry has been determined a go, then we'll have a much better idea.
And will you consider escort at that time, or?
Those, I think all of those will be in the mix, absolutely, and I think partly CDOT, one of the challenges is they were operating basically the pilot car system was very, very long, so it was longer than they're used to ever doing, and so it's really extending their safety of doing that, and the safety of their crew, and then the safety of just the general public driving through. Just the big thing to emphasize, I know indefinite, which from CDOT, as we all know with avalanche closures, you never hear CDOT say that, but they absolutely are working hard to get it open. CDOT hates any road being closed. So just know that that's a big thing we have on top of the agenda every day is getting that open.
Is there any kind of timeline for the reentry plan for residents?
The same thing, it's going to be based on fire activity. So the team really wanted to get through these next couple of days. That was my impression from it, and they can elaborate as needed. But the properties at risk were all in this area. So, they really, and they've done an excellent job of really mitigating the risk, but they have put in a huge amount of work in that area. So I think they definitely do not want to do a reentry until they know that risk of fire is really just basically eliminated. Okay. The only other element I think everybody should be aware of is that we did have to evacuate San Juan County residents, and that was in the Cascade Village area in the neighborhoods just north of the county line. And we still have basically a reentry tagging program that's going on in town hall. So town hall staff have been doing an excellent job of integrating that piece into their daily workflow. Thanks.
We've got San Juan County with their emergency declaration, and Willie was gonna talk on that, and then Patrick Rondinelli is here, and then Patrick will talk about the DOLA portion of this.
Good evening, everyone. What I'm handing out is a proclamation of state and local emergency that I signed on June 7th. I have the authority to do it for a 7-day period. Then the county commissioners have to confirm it. They will do that on their, or I assume they will do that on their meeting on Wednesday morning. What this does is it opens us up to some additional state resources. La Plata County has done it. And along those lines, and Patrick may talk about this in a little more detail, we are working, Lisa is kind of taking the lead on this. A disaster assistance center will be located in this room. Tentatively, we've scheduled Thursday. I don't know if that's still good, but what that will do is for businesses and individuals, we can provide them assistance, tell them what assistance is available, who to contact. We'll have, health, mental health, unemployment, social services, Region 9, San Juan Development, school, community, emergency relief fund, commodities, various programs. We're identifying what programs are available and what people qualify and how they get that. So we're trying to get this set up just as quick as possible, get that information out to help everybody. This is probably something I don't need to tell you, but I'm going to state it anyway. This is having financial impact on businesses, on individuals, but it's also having a big financial impact on the town and somewhat on the county. I would suggest that as a policy, that the town take a position that only necessary expenditures be made until you find out really what the impact is going to be. So that, especially big ticket items, don't make any big purchases if you don't absolutely have to. I think that's a position the county's going to take. The sales tax was down 10% from the Missionary Ridge fire between 2003 and 2003 was 10% higher than what we had in 2002. And at that time we had 550 open. We didn't have Stage 3 in the forest, National Forest. I think we're already seeing a much bigger impact than we did from Missionary Ridge. We had the train down for a period, but even for some of that time, the train continued to operate.
So the percentage change from 2001 to 2002?
It was about the same. It was probably about 7% decrease. Yeah, it dropped about 7% and then goes up about 10% the next year. Then the next thing I'm going strongly suggest the,
I'm sorry, did you say, or do you have any predictions on percentages now? I mean, okay,
don't have a clue. I just know it's not,
yeah.
not real good right at the moment. You know, a lot of it's going to depend on duration. You know, the sooner we get the highway back open, the sooner we get some rain, the sooner the train starts running, the less the impact is gonna be. The longer that goes, the bigger it's gonna be. The other thing I'm gonna strongly suggest to you is that, as far as, staff goes, we're very limited resource as far as staff goes, and this, you know, it's kind of caused an all hands on deck. A lot of us have been, on this since day one, and it makes it real difficult to do our daily job when we're chasing all these other things that happen at a moment's notice. And so I'm just gonna strongly suggest that you know, tell staff to try to maintain their current workload as much as possible. Don't assign additional duties or tasks. You know, they need to be available to act quickly, and I'll respond. And if they're, you know, if you're on additional task to them and they're not getting that done, it's just gonna increase their stress level. And I can tell you right now, everybody's stress level is higher than it needs to be. So just be real considerate of your staff. You know, we'll all get through this. And finally, communications. We all need to stay on message. And I think at this point, our message is that we're open for business. And so, you know, whether a reporter calls you or you post something on Facebook, you know, let's remember to be positive. We're open for business. There's still things for people to do here. There's still a great place to be. We've got Deanne Gallegos back here. She's our public information officer. If you need help with a message, you know, get with her. Let's stay positive, and we'll get through this. And that's pretty much all I've got for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about what Willie was just talking with, in regards to the Disaster Assistance Center. With the county taking the action to make the declaration that Willie did, as he said, it starts to bring in some additional state resources that we can bring here. I've been working, trying to get the Disaster Assistance Center set up. We've got one that just opened today in La Plata County. It's today and tomorrow. And then we'll be doing here on Thursday, we're gonna work with Lisa, Thursday 9 to 1-ish too. We'll work to get that message out. Deanne will be working with us to get that message out too. It's not just a one-time thing too. What we found in a lot of communities to do this, we do it one day and then maybe we come back and do it a week later again, because conditions do change, people's needs do change. The Assistance Center will have a variety of groups here. In the meantime though, I brought some information that you can start to at least share with the public today. Everything from some information from Region 9 to workforce. Specifically, workforce wanted me to let everyone know if there are people facing unemployment issues and they're not sure where to file. You can go to the library. There's actually computers designated at the library that can log on and help people enroll for unemployment benefits. Also, public health will be up here, San Juan Basin Public Health. The Director of Health and Human Services from La Plata County will also assist up here, will be up here. We'll also have some resources regarding mental health and some counseling opportunities that are there because there is that stress. Region 9, though, we recognize the two big ones are employment and the impacts on the business and the economy, and trying to make sure we've got additional resources that are coming in here. Once again, we're going to start with this base level of communication that we'll have on Thursday, and then we'll do another resource center down the line to assist. And one of the things we do at the resource centers is we ask for people to give us feedback. Is there a service that we're not considering right now that you would like to see? And we're trying to get those resources in. So I'll be leaving a lot of this information with Michelle, and then it will be available downstairs, so even if somebody's walking in the door and says, hey, where can I go? Here's some information, some pamphlets of documentation to do that. Another resource that I want to point out here is this one called, excuse me, grab the wrong one, 211, and they have a base, this is a number that people can call, just like 911. It's a call center that once again has a lot of general information that can direct people. So if they say, I've got some questions about my insurance related to the business and the interruption of business, who can I talk to? They can provide some direction on those type of things. So we will have that information. As you can obviously hear from a lot of the resources, people are really spread thin, and so we are bringing in some people to help us. I have Kimberly Bowen, who is the regional manager from the Northwest. She just arrived today and is helping me down in La Plata County. Christy Doon, who is the South Central regional manager. Christy's actually going to be arriving here on Wednesday. I told Lisa that, not you, because at first I kept saying tomorrow. I was thinking today's Tuesday. The dates are starting to blend together here. But she will be arriving on Wednesday and really working closely with Lisa on the logistics to get the center set up with this thing. As Willie also pointed out, oh, excuse me, I'm sorry, some additional resources. So from the Department of Homeland Security Emergency Management, we have two individuals here. Chuck Bell, who's emergency manager, works a lot. He's equivalent to Trevor Denny, working with Jim. But Jim Raymond back here is the recovery officer for the state in regards to that. And we're already doing a lot of work looking on the, okay, we're in the middle of this event right now, this incident, but what do we do down the line? What are the long-term impacts of this? And what are the steps that we can be taking to help with the recovery side and bringing those resources in to start thinking on those today? Included with that, as Willie talked about, looking at the financials, I haven't had a chance to tell Michelle this or Willie, but we are tapping into some of the resources we have to do some financial analysis within DOLA that will be coming in and assisting with that, looking at where we are financially in the community and what we can do. I guess the last thing I would just stress on this, we all know how devastating this economic impact will have on this community. And when I mean we're talking about it constantly down there. Everything from the conversations about the highway closure to the forest closure, it is brought up. Jim's doing a great job of bringing it up. Anthony, when he was down there, was bringing it up. I'm bringing it up as much as we can. I was just saying, this is very hard. What can we do to make sure those come in? So it is on people's minds. We're keeping it in the forefront of, we need to look at San Juan County, so it's going to look at what that impact will be. So I don't have the answers right now, but no, we are constantly looking at that, and we'll be bringing the resources we can into the system. You guys have any questions? So with the closure, like I said, I might be bouncing back and forth. It depends when I can and cannot get through. But Christy will be coming in at least for Wednesday and then Thursday through the Disaster Assistance Center. Kimberly, you might see come up here, or me. We're kind of tag teaming that over the next few days. But you know how to get a hold of me. You need something, just go. All right?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything further, Jeff?
us all this good information. Appreciate it.
Oh, your jacket. Your jacket. Yeah, no, I recognize your face, but I don't know. What's their name? Yeah, that was all of us people out there just getting on the road as we go.
Okay, so we're up to, number 5, the approval of the consent agenda items for payroll meeting minutes for 5/14, 5/29, and 6/3. The accounts payable, Teller House liquor license renewal application, the Silver San Juan Gallery art gallery permit renewal application, the Inn of the Rockies of the Ama House liquor license renewal application, and then the antique car and truck show, the special event application. So, Trustee Varela?
I go to remove actually all of the minutes, except for maybe the June 3rd. There are considerable mistakes. Some of them overlap. They say the same thing on both, even though these meetings were not the same. I think we need to examine that a lot further. Number B under 5, all of the minutes, all of them, all 3. Well, no, I didn't see anything wrong with you heard.
Oh, okay,
So it's the 14th and the 29th.
So we're taking out the 14th and the 29th from 5B and leaving in 6/3. Anything else from the board? Okay, then I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda minus the minutes for 5/14 and 5/29. Okay, so we have a motion from Trustee Renata. Second. And we have a second from Trustee Varela. Any other discussion from the board? Okay, then roll call, please. Sarah?
Trustee DeKay?
Yes.
Trustee Wiegert?
Yes.
Trustee Molina,
Yes.
Trustee Barella?
Yes.
Trustee Renauden?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lashley?
Yes.
Mayor Tukey?
Yes. So we're down to staff reports. Any questions from the board for the staff? Trustee Renata?
Do we not have somebody doing our payroll? Is that, I mean, we do, right? Or are you doing it yet? Well, I just wondered, under human resources, you put completed regular payrolls and benefits.
So I administer our payroll through another company, so I actually do all them manually. I set up all the employees, and then I do manually enter all of their hours, and I code them under what departments that they may be working under. So every one of their days are classified. At least with Public Works and Parks and Facilities, it's more difficult for people who are working in town hall administrative staff.
Just for your information, it's the same payroll group that does the training. So when I worked for the training, I mentioned it to because they take care of everything. So that, it kind of takes a little bit, I mean, Michelle keeps looking at everything, but it takes away things like putting together our end of the year things and things like
that. They actually take care of all of it. And the training's been using it for years and years. So,
I just, you know, I don't know what all goes into it, and that's why, excuse me, I asked. It just seems like you do a lot of the pre-plan to give them the information to cut the checks.
Essentially, that's what they do, yeah. So I do all the data entry, and they have a calculation that figures the taxes, and they write the checks. It's not so much that it would be a problem, but it was recommended to us, in the past when we looked at it before, that it is that extra check and balance of somebody else reviewing, the finances and the payroll being specific to those ones.
Even my accountant, does his taxes through a payroll service, or his payroll through a payroll service, and the only employee on his payroll is his wife, so. I think it's a really valuable service to have a payroll company, and it takes a lot of labor out of doing it. You can definitely do that for a business, and it's well worth it, and the liability of it as well, if you get audited is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say the liability line is
It's good to know.
Thank you. I was just gonna clarify, is the payroll department out of Durango, is that correct? Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's used the same one, right, with the
Yep.
Police Association.
and if any of you have taken a walk over to Memorial Park, we have a new bridge, so enjoy it and walk on it. And I walked on it and just turned around and came back through.
Can we jump on it too?
Yeah, I think it's strong enough. Yeah, so thank you to Todd. Yes, for getting all that together.
I was not alone, there was a.
And John.
Did we send a thank you, or did we do anything for Michael Lawyer for his donations of time and fences and?
I think we just found out about that, so
Yeah.
I don't know.
That was just completed this week.
Okay, so I think he needs to be thanked or recognized or something.
I can write him a nice letter if you.
Yeah, thank you.
And then also Mark Gary, also for the bandstand.
Okay, and then if you notice, Michelle put in the, sales tax, and remember it's 2 months in arrears. So,
Actually, April, May, of course, we're still in June, so that would be, account for the 2 months. Yeah, it's gonna be scary.
well, the drop in May won't be the rest of it. It shouldn't even be non-existent. And then the drop in May, but the drop in June. Okay, anything else for the staff?
Thank you. Thank you all. A lot of good work going on here, so thanks for all your hard work.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very much appreciated. Any trustee reports?
I would like to discuss with matters, possibly having a work session or retreat with the staff. As the board with staff here shortly.
We've already talked about it at the last staff meeting where Patrick Rondinelli came in, and that was one of his recommendations, that the staff and the board should get together. And possibly also, not the first one, but maybe the next one, also have the county come in and actually have the staff and the town and county. But for the first one, it would be, and the staff is actually, one of his recommendations was to have the staff, for each department write down the priorities, so that we can talk about what their priorities are, and the items that they can kind of put on the back burner for right now until you know, we get to a point where, yeah, when, maybe we can pray for good old Bud to move up and really down us while he's doing his, I guess he's the next hurricane coming, is Hurricane Bud. So maybe we can take care of that.
So have we received an email concerning that?
We haven't at all because we just talked about it when Patrick happened to be here on whatever day it was, in between, the meetings with the group that's discussing the fire.
All right, can
So,
we set up a time or?
Michelle has the steps figured out time frames, or at least still working on it.
We're here every day. We're here every day.
We are working every day.
Do I know
I don't know, as far as the timeframe, I think, we'll work with what you, give us, we can, the staff has met, as a group and kind of, just started, that conversation amongst us as far as what our roles are, what our priorities are, how we can support each other, what sort of relationship that we need to have with the board. Yes, we want to have a meeting with the board as soon as possible. Like Willie and Patrick just said, we really need to take a look at our finances. That's urgent. I would love, at least as far as that goes, to get some of that state assistance that was requested through DOLA to come in here and analyze our finances currently before we delve into that. And it'd be really nice to have some state assistance and some structure, and then I can report that back to you and we can go from there. So on the finance piece, I want to get with Patrick on that a little bit, but it's still urgent, so I'm thinking the next week or this week or next. And I guess you could maybe pull the rest of the staff as far as what, if we are the readiness of having a board staff meeting, or would love to also hear what you all think about that.
To give you time, I think, thank you, to give you time, maybe next week sometime, you know, to prepare whatever it is you need to put together.
For the finances, you mean? Or all staff?
For all staff, yeah.
Yeah, again,
And I feel
I
as
have
if
to keep all
if
this.
Patrick can't make something here really soon, I would like to still get together with staff.
Right.
Because he's very busy.
Sure, that's one element, but there are a whole bunch of things I think that the staff in general would like to kind of come together with the board on.
Sure.
So yeah, that by no means should preclude us from having.
Okay, the only problem with next week is, for those of you that are going to see me at home, next week is CML. So maybe it's the following week, which is the board meeting, which is on the 25th. Yeah, and it could be any of the other days. You know, we just have a work session, other than adding it to a.
Or would Monday or Tuesday work?
We're trying to keep the, with the board meeting, we're trying to keep the budget items, you know, so maybe
Coming Monday?
Tuesday or Wednesday.
Madam Mayor,
Well,
they-
CML starts on the 18th, Monday is the 18th.
So you don't leave until Tuesday?
Till Tuesday, or are you leaving Monday?
I can do Tuesday.
Pardon?
I can do Tuesday. That'd be fine.
When does that actually start?
It starts on the 19th, apparently.
Starts in the
which is
morning on
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Okay. So you would be missing something then if you
It's
want.
the general session, you know. It's usually like motivational speaker and. It's okay.
Or if we could meet in the morning, then we could definitely be able to meet that afternoon to see him out. But I do
Yeah.
think it's very important that we get together pretty quickly.
Would that be okay?
I think, again, I can't speak for all the staff,
But I mean with you in particular.
Oh, yeah.
Because of.
I would like to, I'd make it work, yeah, because it is important. I definitely feel like this is
Okay, I think
we need
that's
that
good.
communication in some direction.
Oh, Mr.
sorry, did you recognize me? I'm sorry. Probably for a full staff meeting, it might be, my suggestion we do it the week after next, early in that week, maybe, I believe you have a city council meeting on the 27th, is that correct?
25th.
25th, maybe even the Tuesday after that.
The 26th.
Yeah, like a 6 PM or 7 PM workshop kind of meeting with the whole staff. With Michelle being gone next week, that's problematic, to say the least, and I think we still have a few things we want to work out to present to you pertaining to a lot of different subjects, not the least of which is what we can do to save some money in the coming months. And that's just one thing we're talking about, but we're talking about, you know, some of the projects that we may or may not have on the table, we may or may not have plated. We work so closely together that for us to meet with each other first, to fine tune each other and say, wait, we can't do that, or we shouldn't do that, and then make a presentation to you, both as a group and individually, probably would be the most beneficial to you guys.
So we could, you know, open it to the 26th, which is the Tuesday, and maybe do it at 5 or 6.
Let's do it early, because that's another meeting. And I'm willing, right, and I'm willing to, I don't know about other trustees, but I'm willing to have it earlier in the day. Morning, noon, earlier in the day.
Towards the end of your shift.
Yeah, anything. I'm open to anything.
Trying to do my calendar here. We're looking at Tuesday the 26th.
Yeah. And for people that work, I mean, we also have to remember that Jess works, you know, Stony has his schedule, so for those of you that, you know, I mean.
That can be hard to make that one, as people evenings, like, goes after 5 PM.
26th,
Or before 8.
we do have the highway opening and starting like right after the summer solstice weekend, it starts to get a lot busier.
So, you know, maybe we should, for that meeting, maybe keep it at 5, so that the people that do work, is that still okay with you?
The 27th?
On the 26th.
Okay.
Sarah?
I think I can speak for the staff, so like partly in this process is that, you know, we're gonna have like our outcomes to share with you, but the whole idea is that ultimately, you know, we work under your direction and for the citizens, and how do we marry where we're at with where you guys, you know, what you talked about at your meeting, and how are we gonna sort of come together with you as a board to work effectively? So I don't want it to feel like we're coming and doing some major presentation to you. I think the idea is to come together and come up with what that looks like, you know, to just work more, you know, cohesively, or build some relationships. And I believe that's what we've talked about, and I just want to share that part of it, and hope that you.
I think we would consider it as a work session.
Yeah.
So we actually set the table up like
Sure.
we do when we're working with the county, so that, you know, all of us are facing each other. And we actually can work together, you know.
Sounds good. I just wanted to share
And
that.
then, you know, actually structure it as a pure work session. So we can hear from you, you can hear from us, and we can put together something. If that sounds okay with you.
And that can make it the 26th work.
Okay, so 26th is good for you, so you won't be out fighting? Okay. So then we'll set it up for the 20.
Sorry, but it's election day, is that gonna be a problem?
Not for us here, they'll hold that at the county.
I'm a judge, so I won't be able to make it.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, what about the 27th, which is Wednesday?
That's fine.
Is that okay?
I'll be here, I'll be on duty, so there's a chance that I'll get called away at the last minute.
Can change it.
27th.
27th.
I believe.
Fish flies away, take care
I
of
don't know.
themselves.
Same time?
Yeah, the 5 o'clock on the 27th, which is now Wednesday.
section 2 of Kendall is open, and it might be nice to kind of have a little more relaxed atmosphere over there. But we can work out that detail prior to.
Yeah, why don't you see if Kendall's open, and then, you know, we'll do it there. Okay. Okay, so the 27th, which is Wednesday, at 5 p.m.
And I have another question. Would we put together an emergency spending freeze ordinance, or would we put something together as a board, officially?
I think that right now, I think we do the work session, and the staff knows that they've already talked about, and Patrick mentioned it to them when he was here with the meeting, he recommended that. So I think once we have our meeting, then we can put together between us and between them. Does that sound okay to everybody? Is that okay with you, trustee DeKesher? Okay. Okay, anything else then? So we're set for the 27th at 5 p.m. And maybe we'll get good old timer Maxwell to bring in something from the grocery store, something nice to munch on. Like food. Yes.
I do have something, I was on the trustee reports. Okay, we got last meeting in our packet, we got the financials sort of, we did for the sheriff's department, and a breakdown of the financials for the fire department. What about the ambulance?
I think, go ahead.
I had a conversation with Kimmett today after I saw you, as a matter of fact, and it was my fault that the ambulance was supposed to be on this agenda, and we got overlooked. And I did talk to Kimmett about that today. I let him know that we had these other presentations going on, and asked if he could wait until the second meeting in June. So he is going to come and present the financials then.
Okay, good.
So he will be coming in person.
Okay, yeah, can I add something to that? I would like to see, over the last year or so, the number of first aid calls, all the calls, first aid calls, medical requiring transport in the ambulance, and how many helicopters transports there were.
Maybe all the numbers from the sheriff's department and the fire department are, you know, the numbers as far as from each shared entity would probably be wise. And also their spending, those are shared services, I understand, but that we would reach out to suggest that they also have a spending freeze on those given services.
I think Lily's already talked with Bruce, and what they've noticed is that the sheriff's department budget is actually lower so far. So Bruce is well aware of that. As far as the ambulance, you know, it's kind of like, yeah.
Just don't buy any Band-Aids, okay?
Trustee Berlin.
So my question is whether or not we're gonna get these quarterly, what are we asking for? Have we come up with a system that says, because it's a shared service, are we gonna get them quarterly from all of these individuals? Because I noticed that Sheriff Conrad, when he put it in, it was only for the end of the year 2017. I mean, the chamber gives it constantly, so.
I think they're kind of designated per contract. The chamber's contract that says monthly reporting, they give monthly reporting. The fire authority's contract says quarterly reporting. So that's what we should expect of them, I believe. the shared services in the IGA say an annual report. So, but that's a really good point, some consistency with all of those would be great.
But we don't know what the other ones are supposed to report at?
That would be included in the IGA.
Okay.
Can we put that on for a future agenda item to say, put together something requiring that each entity has the same requirement as far as reporting?
I think that'd be a good conversation to bring up when we're having a joint town county meeting, particularly when we're talking about shared services, which is gonna be in one of these budget sessions. Because we're talking about modifying the contract or the agreements between the town and county.
When I think quarterly is probably good for each agency.
But let's not forget, I mean, we have a tendency to forget to do things, and, yeah.
Yeah, it gets talked about, never mind.
Trustee,
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This was replaced by Citizens Day, who was confused about the fire ban. They were in production based on what they had read in the newspaper, that they were not allowed to use a propane grill. So there is some confusion out in the public about what exactly this fire ban constitutes, and anything that we can do to help people better understand the limits of the community.
I think one of the items that Bruce brought up in one of our meetings was that, if it had a lid, you know, if it was a propane grill, like ours has a lid, then they're okay, but if it's one of these that's wide open with the flames going out, and I don't know what that looks like, because, you know, I can't. So, that one is.
And the shut off, correct? And the
It
shut
had
off.
to shut off. Mr.
Might I address that? The actual ruling is, as Madam Mayor said, a covered grill is imperative, that's number one. But the second thing that's just as important is the shut-off valves. And what the Forest Service would like to see is not only the shut-off valves on the individual burners, but also a shut-off valve on the tank itself also, although that's sometimes a little harder to enforce. But they want to be able to shut that off independently. But the cover is the big thing. Propane only, shut-off valves will shut off the individual burners as well as the tank itself.
Thank you.
Now, I don't know whether, to be honest with you, I don't know what stage 3 says on that. We haven't looked that up, so. But the town, I believe, is not going to stage 3 at this point. So, that's where we're at with stage 2.
And that supposedly is happening tomorrow. They're
For
going-
the Forest Service.
from the
And
Forest
LaPlata
Service,
County.
So they probably will have a listing.
But I just haven't looked it up online. It's easily available.
So I don't know if anybody saw the ones that Deanne made through the chamber, that actually listed in gigantic lettering, the first thing it said was no smoking. Because that, being a Main Street business is by far the worst thing that we have seen. And Bruce, I would really like to commend him. He's been walking up to everybody and going, okay, you're not from here, we're in a fire band. And if I, you know, and they'll be like, oh my God, and they'll put it out. The more problem is coming from, a certain group of local individuals that don't think it applies to them, and I don't know what we can do about that. I don't know, is there additional code enforcement that you can do?
Well, it's,
Well, Bruce can,
I mean,
$20,000 fine.
we could write, we don't have a, in other words, as far as the fire marshal, Bruce is the fire marshal.
Yeah.
And so he would write fire stage violations like smoking. The only code that we would have would be a general nuisance or general violation code that we could certainly pursue that, but it doesn't have near the spanking that the $1,000 fine would have. But, you know, the first time they start writing some $1,000 tickets, I imagine that will get some attention.
I know two people that have almost gotten them and managed to weasel out, so, but I've seen them smoking.
I agree, Molly.
In public, and it's really
You know,
making me angry.
I think it's time to, you know, I think, let's be smart, guys. Personally, nobody in this room smokes, and the truth is, it's up to all of us to tell them to somebody, even if it's a friend, and say, that's just not cool.
And I know
let them know.
a group has been caught thinking that they could get away with it by going into the alley. And I've already had
Right.
before you use it.
Oh, I thought as soon as that night at the meeting, I texted all of my employees, that this was going into effect, they had to midnight, and I would fire anyone I caught working for me on stepping out of my premise to smoke a cigarette, so. Yeah.
But I think from somebody that doesn't own a business,
Yeah.
like, we have to watch.
We gotta
that.
worry about enforcement.
Yeah, we do. But the other thing is too, Bruce has said, dial 911, they will take care of it. You know, so, you know, for somebody like Molly who can do that. But, you know, otherwise, 911 and the sheriff's department is right there. So, Trustee Moon?
Thanks. And I think, you know, it's increasingly challenging to think about the actual number of fires that are started from lighting and smoking cigarettes, particularly in a relatively controlled environment like city streets and dirt and concrete. You know, it's a tough argument to make for the folks who actually do indulge in that, and especially from folks who maybe don't smoke cigarettes on a regular basis or marijuana or whatever the case is. You know, it's kind of a hard thing, I think, for us to understand and to really empathize with. But yeah, I think trying to engage in conversation more aggressively when appropriate, but you know, if somebody's being belligerent about it. That's all. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. There's nothing we can add. No. Okay, so we're down to number 8, continued business, and I'm going to make a comment, and then you can do whatever you'd like to do. We've already talked about this. We had 2 motions that died for lack of a second. We had a motion that actually did have a second, and we went around with a roll call because I wanted to make sure that everybody had a yes or no vote, and everyone voted yes. You sat and listened to all that's been going on since June 1st. For all of us that have been part of the priority right now is this fire, and what are we gonna do, and the evacuees that we've had, and people coming and going. I think that we've already done this in a motion, and to bring it up, I have a hard time with it, but it's up to the board. I mean, if we're going to have a motion, and then 6 weeks later, somebody's gonna decide they didn't like that motion, and so they're gonna put it out again, then we'll put our own motions. And, you know, what good is each one of you saying yes, when if you wanted to say no, you could have done it then, and you didn't. So, whatever, I mean, that's my spiel right now. So. Trustee Renata?
Yes, I just have a comment, and I think that, right now we're spending a large amount of money because we don't have a manager or administrator. And I think that it should be on your shoulders to run the meetings and not the attorney. You know,
Well, the attorney's not, what he did was he ran the meeting the last time so
Right.
that he could keep us on track.
Exactly. But
And we asked him if he would come, just because we knew it might be that type of a meeting.
yeah.
Right now, he's not, and what's going on is, you know, obviously our next item, our last item is gonna be the executive session.
But I think it's important that you run the meetings, no matter who's sitting in that chair.
And you know, it's okay, I know that, you know, Mr. Feinberg wanted to do it his way, and you know, we talked about it and just kind of went back and forth. But if it's the pleasure of the board for me to do that, we'll do it, and we can do it as a board. You know. And, you know, it's up to you. So, Trustee Decay.
It was my understanding that it was a consensus of this board, not a decision, but a consensus that we agreed to go out to RFP. That was what I gathered from our past discussions. So, with that being said, please chime in and share.
What did we, just for your what did we make a, you mentioned that
we all voted for, what did we vote for?
Trustee Uyghur made a motion to appoint everyone, to reappoint everyone. And that was after the motion to, send out an RFP did not, pass twice. Trustee Barella.
Yes, I'm gonna like differ because the original RFP was set at a prior meeting before the three of us even got on the board. And it was set up for discussion and for future discussion. And so my motion had nothing to do with appointing everyone. It had to do with knowing what we were doing, appointing everyone. It had nothing to do with the actual appointments. You know, 90% we didn't know what we were doing. It was the first meeting. And we just slated this, and I just wanted to continue it so we could be on a better page to understand exactly what we were doing. But the RFP was proposed prior to us getting on board.
I would say
Just
I would say that over the past 2 months, some things have come to light, and some actions have been taken that I feel not necessarily made in the best interest of the town. And from those decisions that I was interested in seeing this come to the board again and under discussion. I question whether or not the decision to put Mr. Feinberg on paid administrative leave is the correct one. Because I know we're spending a lot of money and keep that from getting nothing.
Well,
I question the timing of this a whole lot, as well. We don't have an administrator right now, which means we don't have any leadership for our town staff, which is really difficult on them. I do think that, the attorney promised to have something for us 2 weeks ago by this meeting, and we haven't yet heard, what that is. I just worry about bringing this up at this current time. I was under the understanding that we were gonna bring it up again, but that was before we had to place our administrator on leave. And unless we can really come up with some really big specifics, I would like to come back and revisit this at another time, but I just think we have a lot going on right now to be visiting this right now. But if we have compelling reasons to really discuss it, then.
I'm confused. Now, we're talking about the RFP, correct? For the attorney, which has really nothing to do with the vacancy we have.
If I
In
may.
a way.
well,
Yeah,
it does because
he's working on it.
whoever, talked with him to go ahead with the investigation.
Right.
The investigation was gone ahead. And the executive session is
Upcoming.
tonight.
Yeah, okay. Well, maybe we should wait until after. Okay.
Trustee Moon?
If we don't continue this conversation, hypothetically speaking, if we don't continue the conversation about the RFP for the attorney tonight or in the near future, if we decide to table that for a later discussion, when is the next, would it be next year or is it 2 years from now?
It's the next, ballot. It's the next election.
The next election, okay. So I think, yeah, just to recap, from what I understand, the first night that we set down the agenda, we did agree to reappoint, basically with a change of conversation that there would be a later discussion about the RFPs. But I have to, I guess, reflect Mayor Pro Tem Lashley's comments that just given the nature of potential volatility and instability of town proceedings from this point forward, yeah, we might have some questions to bring up regarding the current attorney, but stability just strikes me as a particularly necessary thing we need to protect right now. So.
Am I under the impression that we need to, that we're not able to revisit these RFPs kind of at will, that they happen in an election cycle?
Usually they do.
Okay. But I thought that in our initial meeting for these, that it was brought up that we revisit these at any time.
Which we can, correct? We can visit these at any time.
Because they really.
So if I may propose then that unless like what Pro Tem Lashley just offered in the notion of like if we can get some concrete hard details for going ahead and pursuing the RFP, that we discussed the possibility of putting a concrete definition of when we will revisit it. If it's not going to happen tonight, just so that it doesn't happen 6 weeks from now, just so it doesn't happen 6 weeks from then, that we set a hard date for that.
So what date would be on?
25th of the night. We don't know the outcome, so if we push it off to the 9th, put it on the agenda again on the 9th. Because that gives us.
I think this is a discussion we should be having after our
Yeah,
Okay.
because we don't know.
after our executive session.
I like that. Okay, so we'll wait until after the executive session. Okay. Under new business, policy discussion, utility management. Michelle?
We have the utility policies in the, actually, I might have Sarah. Sarah compiled this document, she did the work on this, so I can give feedback that she gets.
You know, as I stated in that first paragraph, there's several things that we practice that have been practiced long before we got here, like the EQR system that's in place, and EQR, I always forget, equivalent residential usage, and that's how we adjust our transfer station fees for commercial and different property uses, because we can't bill based on water use. It is what it is. So we make adjustments for restaurants, say, or hotels based on square footage. People fill out a form, and we have those historic documents, and Mr. McDougall will be going through and sort of re-upping those in the coming year when he does inspections. The threshold increase in the winter that was instituted last year, that's not in a written policy, but it's something we practice. We've talked a little bit about a leak forgiveness policy, and the staff talked a lot about what that might look like for at one time, like you have a major leak in your property or your bill increases and you end up with a $5,000 utility bill. How does that look? Because right now people pay that, period. They're, you know, so that one's mostly, you know, discussion. So if you take item 2, you know, how do you guys want that to look? That's the staff suggestion. We've noticed a transfer of ownership. We'd like to just get all of this in writing, basically. It's gonna protect the town, it's gonna protect residents so that we have some structure to the end. The tax one is a big one for me. Also, I do that tax certification on utility accounts that are past due. And I think under that circumstance in particular, that's people's property, and we should have that policy in writing, both for our citizens and for staff to know how to implement it. So, are there any specific questions about any of these items, or? Yes.
Thank you. And this may be something that Bill and yourself and John could possibly add to this list, is that there has been, well, I guess I should just talk about what happened to me in particular with this property. A sewer line that was connected to the neighbor backed up. And I have been paying water bills and sewer bills for years and years and years and years. Well, that being that it was attached, I had to detach from the neighbor, which I didn't know it was at the neighbor, and put in a whole new line, my own sewer line. Well, it was a great expense that hit at a time I had not prepared for it. And I do know in the past, they did work with me on a payment plan.
And I believe that's on here, payment arrangement establishment. That's not a written policy, but it is on my list. It's number 3.
Okay.
And we've done that before with some citizens.
But also to discuss, I mean, are you gonna require a tap fee? Are you gonna require plan investment fee? I mean, even, you know, that's just something to consider, that please, talk about that, and what kind of, fee that might look like for someone, because it happens, right? We have old infrastructure that, at times is tied together, and something happens and people have to pull part from that. And, I mean, does that mean that they pay a whole other tap fee, or what would you think, John?
I would think that, there are a lot of things that pop up that, and I go to the municipal code looking for answers to people's questions. I have another customer right now that's on a shared sewer line, and his line is clogged.
Okay.
And the only way for him to install a new sewer line is underneath his house, which has no crawl space, no basement, or get an easement from an adjacent property owner. That's just another example. There are several examples, and this draft is attempting to answer some of these.
Okay.
So I think that once we have leadership in place, then we can solve this problem. Right now, I would just say that this is for you to look at the draft.
Okay.
I know that there are some
There's some
things that,
direction from people, you know, well, that's fine. I don't care how it's addressed. You guys can do what you'd like with this document,
Well,
but.
I think that there are other things that we need to look at here, not just this list. But are you saying that this is proposed?
We have a couple of
For
customers
policy.
who, you know, like it happens all the time. But there are a couple of customers who right now had some issues that are, you know, hanging with some relatively high bills. And I don't want to speak about them directly because it's their personal issues. But, you know, particularly, I know I couldn't pay a $5,000 water bill right now. I'm just saying. And if it's fixed and the water is relatively inexpensive at that moment, you know, like to process, I'm just, and really it is suggestions. I mean, we asked to have this drafted into an ordinance so it could be proposed to you guys in a way that would make it, and that did not happen. So,
It's very important.
however you guys want to address it is fine. But Molly, did you have another question about that?
Just in general, I know quite a few people that rent, that, why don't we put renters? Is it just a matter of paperwork? Is it just a matter of filling that out, saying, here's my lease, and so on and so forth? Because I know a lot of people that don't necessarily get their water bills when they're leasing and have to wait from the owners. And I don't know why we've never implemented something, not a transfer of ownership, just a billing that can go to a tenant. Just,
I can say why, because it would be hard for the town to run down the tenant if they leave in the middle of the night without paying their bill. I think it's easier more efficient, I should say, to bill the property owner. And that way the property owner can, can either add it to their rent or something.
Well, some do, some don't.
Yeah.
I know a couple of people, they're always like, I want it in my name so I can see the bill.
Well, yeah, and that is a problem.
Yeah.
I've had one client.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
That is one of the unwritten policies that we have carried on. That one was here prior to my being here, and we've carried that one forward. But I would agree that it makes sense because ultimately, when it comes down to tax certification, it comes down to the responsibility as the owner of the property, and that's why we don't want to take it out of their hands. And the second portion of that is that we have a very transient population, and we're constantly changing renters. Again, that's another argument for why it should really be tied to the owner, because if that is the one that is going to have the ultimate responsibility.
But I agree, you know, they ought to be able to see the water.
yeah, they should be able to come up and ask if they've got a lease from that location, at least so they can see.
Oh, they can.
Oh, yes, I mean.
Totally.
prohibited from
What?
saying that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know, I asked.
I just have a question with the EQRs, that's just the standard policy that you put now, isn't it?
It's what has been, yes, and I believe for quite a long time. Mm-hmm.
We've always had trouble with people trying to figure out what it is.
I think, yeah.
Yeah, well, you're smarter than the average player, so you probably understand it better, but there's always been questions about
Mm.
EQR. Trustee Renata.
I just have a question. Did a resident receive a $5,000 bill?
There's a couple, I mean, sometimes that happens where,
Well, I know that Cumberland received $59,000.
well, yeah, no, these ones are legitimate. I mean, legitimate leaks, a couple that are, or mysterious situations, and it happens often. I mean, it's not the first time. It's happened throughout the years. And we have held people accountable for some really lofty bills, overpayment plans, and I just think that one's really important in particular. And even if it's just a written policy that you guys say, like, maintain these, or, you know, until we can do some more research, or, you know, however you want to go about it, that's all. More than anything, I think it's going to protect the town and citizens and just have some format.
I also think that the leak forgiveness thing, for the reason that we just talked about, that tenants aren't necessarily responsible for their water bills. Ultimately, landowners are responsible. I mean, it'd be a really vindictive thing to do, I guess, to open your taps when you left if your landlord still lived in town.
So,
Thank you, Madam Mayor. One question on here about the EQRs.
Mm-hmm.
I see that it's in addition to the landfill fee.
Yes.
Is that correct? But I'm assuming that the EQRs are also to compensate for additional water use and sewer usage.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Is that correct?
particularly, I believe also additional, refuse. If you're having commercial properties, you know, they sometimes have more trash.
So is it only refuse?
That's where we do the EQ, that's where the EQRs are calculated. Yeah, that does not happen on the water. That's just as you pay for what you use on water and sewer,
Okay.
metered. And in addition, commercial properties, the sewer is metered, it's not metered, but it reflects the water metered,
Right.
where
Yes.
residential does not.
I'm just curious because I saw in your bathroom, so
Uh-huh.
I'm trying to make that connection.
Right, that's just how, because we can't adjust what people use in water. It is what it is. They use what they use. And I don't know why originally it was implemented. I mean, I assume it was, do you have any history on this? Do you know anything about this history?
The EQR?
The implementation of that, or
I think it,
maybe it was pre-meter, I don't know.
right.
was what, I'm sorry?
I mean, there was just an arbitrary decision that was made at the time.
Yes,
Mayor.
So, two questions. Number one, there was a utility study done on the water and sewer recently, right? Is there any more findings from that study that kind of verifies or kind of helps, validate the EQRs on here?
These are the originals?
Those
They-
are, I didn't change anything.
Yeah, go ahead, Michelle.
The study with the utility rate study we recently had didn't really address EQRs.
Okay.
They did say that, yes, we've got that, system in place with refuse, but the water and sewer utility rates that they recommended were not based on any sort of EQR system.
Did they have any kind of use numbers for restaurants or, any of these
Yes.
kind of people as far as like how much percentage of use, they have above a normal household?
I gave them that data.
Okay.
I mean, they did reference, I gave them so much information that they did what they do with it. I really don't. But yeah, they do have that data.
Okay. And then, sorry, my other question here is, on this kind of policy as well, are contractors billed differently on water, sewer, refuse cycles, or do they just pay by cubic yard for stuff that they bring to the dump?
What we've started, when I first started here, was Contractors are now required, if it's a demo job or if it's just a structural job, there, if you notice, there's dumpsters on these job sites. And they pay directly to Broome, they ordered them from Broome and they pay directly. Any additional yardage that is brought to the dump is charged to their water bill or whomever. If you bring up a load in the back of a pickup that's more than just what we would call maybe a third of the yard, which may be a weekly deal, you're gonna get billed through your water bill.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question on that one? Okay.
I think that, you know, in contrast to what I said earlier, I definitely think that we need to work on this more and formalize it in the form of an ordinance, municipal code, et cetera. But I think that it would be a good idea to adopt this as policy, because we've discussed this. If you guys have more questions, wear it out, you know, talk as much as you need to about it. But these items here, these 6 items that Sarah's bringing to you, it's gonna make her job easier, it's gonna make my job easier. When people ask us those hard questions, we're gonna be able to answer them. So, for what it's worth.
So, good evening, Tiffany and I have brainstormed on this, about what to do for, instead of getting into tax. Is there a way, is there something else you can think of that we can implement? She had talked to, what was his name, Wayne, and he said that, in the municipality that he was in, they actually would, just go to publish your name in the paper, just like we do with the tax certs. So, is that something else that you guys would think would be kind of useful?
I do call them directly. I mean, honestly, we got it down to everybody came in and made a significant payment except one person I couldn't reach. We sent them letters. I mean, one person was certified this year.
Okay, so
I couldn't reach them, and then they ended up coming and taking care of that entire amount, you know, prior to being, or maybe right after it went out in the paper. Either way, I think we've been trying to figure out how to not, and we've, like I said, one this year is pretty good, you know. And this is actually pretty generous if you think about it, because $1,000, that's almost a full year, you know, that someone's not paid their water bill for a resident. But yeah, we're trying to avoid that at all, really. I mean, but for us to just arbitrarily, let's just imagine, Michelle, maybe someone else comes in and does it next year. Or prior to me, there was 5 people who had done it in the last 10 years, right? It was different every single time. And so that's not fair for citizens. They don't know what to expect. And it's certainly not fair for a new staff member to have to come in and not know the best way to handle someone's, you know, to certify people. That's why I think it's important, is if somebody new is here next year when we certify or whatever, to have something in place that makes sense, you know?
I make a motion to approve the proposed policy for implementation for utilities and fees or rates and fees and things. Is that complete that motion?
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Trustee Williams?
This isn't something that we have to have 2 conversations about, I'm presuming, or?
Because it's a policy that we're proposing, it's really, unless you feel like we should put it into a resolution or something.
I think it would be appropriate to put it in ordinance form, as a policy that's gonna be modifying, what we currently have in the code. So you could make your motion to direct staff to formalize this policy.
I'll add that.
And then, yeah, we would do it in the form of an ordinance, which you would use.
Okay, I'll add to the motion to direct staff to make any necessary changes to this policy.
To formalize.
Formalize it, okay.
Is that okay with you?
Yes.
Form.
Second.
Trustee Williams?
I think that's what I need to hear, yeah.
So we'll leave it for right now and, you know, staff will bring it back as a ordinance or resolution or whatever. Okay.
Keep it, making
No,
notes,
because
which
we're
one
not doing anything.
before it gets I'm sorry. Oh, yeah. Roll call. Roll call. Okay, I had two different, I'm sorry.
We're not, no.
Oh, okay.
I wasn't there.
And I'll text Jeff.
Am I calling his number?
Oops, sorry, sorry, Sarah. Thank you,
Does
Bill.
anybody have any public comment that they would like to say for 3 minutes? Mr. Dar?
Okay, I'm gonna speak really quickly, because I only have 3 minutes. First off and foremost, thank you very much for passing my liquor license, I appreciate that.
Good.
Also, right now, under these times with the suspension of the railroad and the rail, Madam Mayor and Council, would you consider maybe an emergency funds advertising in the local newspapers to the north that Silverton needs their business? Daily Planet, Ridgeway Times, the Red, Plain Dealer, just an ad asking them to come visit their community, spend some time with us, our business needs it. It would be a great invitation from this board to those communities. That's it.
Thank you. Good idea, Andy. So, Lisa, do you want to just kind of look and see if there's, something that, I know I put something on the town of Silverton that we were open and added some things.
Yeah, Deanne has worked on an informational campaign on Facebook along those lines. We can certainly look at doing something in print media as well. Obviously, there will be expenses associated with that, so that's something to consider.
Well, I think if you can look and see what we can actually put out for the least amount of revenue right now that we make it, impacted.
Right, and there is an advertising budget, so it's just a question of where this fits within that.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah, let's see if we can do a little bit of co-opting, because we've been talking about a lot of that at the chamber too.
Okay.
So we'll move on.
Yep.
I know you're on the board.
The lodging tax from the county that has the advertising, I think most of that goes to the chamber, correct? So placing that kind of, at least places in the cost for with the chamber would probably be appropriate.
Or, you could talk to Lily about the tourism. That's what I was gonna say.
Yep, I think Deanne and I can tag team that and figure something out.
Because there's money in that one.
What about getting them to write an article for free?
There you go.
That always works. Gotta leave for it.
It seems like URA would be right on top of that, because they're deterring people in Ridgeway to go through Telluride. I mean, everything, the way the signs read is kind of confusing. If you miss it, all you see is 550 closed.
They changed it. They found out that it wasn't a CDOT sign.
Oh.
Bruce found out today.
Okay, good, because I saw it today.
And so now it's saying that Uray and Silverton are both open.
Good.
Great.
Good.
We could get Jonathan Romero from the Herald to write the article, but it wouldn't be accurate.
Except there's a new guy.
You are on film.
Huh?
You're on film, you don't care.
I hope so. I hope you saw it.
So Cassidy's gonna be doing a little bit better. Okay, anything else? Then why don't we do a 5-minute stand-up, or if you have to use whatever, take some water, and then we'll get Jeff on the phone.
Oh, you're right.
Thank everybody for coming. Thank you.
And everything in there,
We had talked about it, yeah, but I know we got distracted.
So I'm worried about like,
Other things that wasn't really, and I knew that you were trying to get Jeff to write it up as an ordinance, but then I kind of forgot about that, and I was like, oh, wait a minute, and I looked at it, and I was like, wait a minute, she really needs this. So we do need to clean up a lot of things.
Well, that's just one little piece.
Yeah.
For sure.
So anyway, sorry about that.
No, it's fine. I'm not
If you
gonna
got
stop around,
something,
I promise.
that was the worst.
Okay.
I really was so sorry.
Seriously, let me know.
Oh,
If you're bringing something up.
Right, utilities.
Then let me know so I don't do something
No.
stupid.
No problem.
Okay.
See you later.
Bye.